more safely. So Dr. Raywalt, Cindy, Holly, if there's anything I say throughout this that you would like to jump in, feel free to interrupt.
So, Rob,
we just had a word from the city. Yep.
Rob, I got one more thing for you. I'm still with you guys. I just realized that as we're working through this, sometimes technical difficulties happen. And so I did not start the actual recording. So if you can just go back to your intro, we'll skip my intro for those that missed it. But if you can just go back to yours, that would be.
Hi, everyone. I'm Rob Holman with Malix Consulting, working on behalf of the City of Crescent City. And here on behalf of Holly Wentz, City Manager, and the Director of the Chamber of Commerce, Cindy Vosberg. And I'm going to share my screen now. This is going to take just a moment. We also have with us Dr. Raywalt from County Health Department, and fortunate to have him here with us. Any of the panelists, if you see anything that you'd like to jump in, please don't hesitate to interrupt me throughout this presentation. So this is the second in our series, and this is the series, the Del Norte Business Info webinar. And today's topic is guidelines for how to operate more safely. So this is for businesses that are operating and how to operate in a safer way. So we just had a word from the city manager. And there we go. Want to open, like last time, with a little bit of gratitude to the city and the county Chamber of Commerce, the Arcata Economic Development Commission, various foundations, the Small Business Development Center, the Small Business Administration, the federal government. There's a lot of entities coming together to help us all through this time, and small businesses in particular need help. So also gratitude for our healthcare workers and our local business community, and all of the restaurants and other businesses that are not currently operating and that we really want to get back to operating. So this webinar series, our objective is to provide guidance and assistance to Del Norte County businesses. And this is every other Tuesday from 3:30 to 5 p.m. And we are open to content suggestions, so please contact Holly Wentz at the city or the Director of the Chamber of Commerce, Cindy Vosberg, with ideas. Today's webinar, we're going to look at the economic injury survey that is ongoing, talk about how to operate more safely, mention some other resources and assistance, and then do some question and answer with those that are attending live. This is also being recorded and available on YouTube. Also, confidentiality assurance. If you are communicating with the Chamber of Commerce or the city about small business loans, all of the information that you are sharing with the city and others is confidential. So, economic injury survey. Holly, well, so first let me say that the city and the county are actively working together with the Chamber of Commerce to conduct an economic injury survey. And the purpose of the survey is to identify the greatest needs so that we can find the most needed solutions in the community. But more importantly is to prepare for future disaster relief funds. So at some point, the state and federal governments will be able to provide additional disaster relief funds, and those will largely be based on need. And so we need to conduct surveys in order to establish the need that our community has for disaster relief funds. And then we also want to customize local assistance programs. And so it's another purpose of the survey. But that second one is really critical. And so if businesses fail to complete the survey, we will show less of a need than we actually have, and we will be less eligible for disaster relief funds. So to find the survey, you can go to Instagram, either the city or county site, city or county Facebook. I find the easiest way to get to it is through the Crescent City website. So right on there, you can click on the COVID-19 information for businesses. It brings you to this county site, which then you can click on, just scrolling down a little bit, that economic injury survey frequently asked questions, and it'll take you to the survey. So you find that button there on the county website. And here is just a sample of what that looks like. And remember that prepare for future disaster relief funds. So if you're a business owner and you haven't filled out the survey, please do. And if you have, please share this with other businesses. It's important that this information is recorded. So Holly, this is a presentation you shared with City Council last night, and I'm hoping that you can jump over and walk us through this one.
So within the first 2.5 weeks of the stay-at-home order, a lot of our businesses, 112 of them, participated in it throughout the community, and we gathered a lot of really important information, which is allowing us to advocate for local businesses and understand what that first chunk of time, that first 2.5 weeks look like for businesses, restaurants, salons, real estate manufacturers. And I believe a lot of the people who participated on it have also been able to be part of our links and our emails and all the information we're putting out. So that's an added benefit. So what we found out during the first 2.5 weeks is that 57% of our businesses were temporarily closed, 2 had to permanently close, and only 40.9% were still open. And at that time, cash flow was the biggest concern. All these other colorful things are variations of how businesses felt during those first few weeks, is very unsure of what they needed and what they needed help with. And what we found out in the first rounds of surveys is that maybe people needed help with disaster relief, maybe they needed business advice. I'll let you know right now, in the survey that will be closing tonight, we only have 17 people, but what is absolutely more clear is now a lot of businesses are saying they absolutely need help with advice, and they absolutely need help with navigating disaster loans and figuring out how to get the support to move forward through this. And the biggest concerns at the time were rent, utilities, and payroll. And this is really helping us try and work with community partners and lenders to figure out how to support businesses on these 3 fronts. We know the PPP dollars that were gone within 20 days. Maybe one of you was able to get them, but most of the businesses I spoke with weren't able to access those, get a PPP loan. We're really trying to work hard to figure out how we can help local businesses have access to that funding based on this information we got from the survey. We know that $1.12 million in loss of revenue, 62 businesses temporarily closed, 2 permanently, and just in the first 2.5 weeks, 252 employees were laid off. And we know that's more now. It's been hit throughout the community, 55 businesses in the outlying areas, 55 within city limits. It's kind of crazy that it's equal portions of city and county, but it's throughout the community. Businesses, whether they're, you know, house cleaning businesses to retailers to real estate to hospitality. There's so many areas that have been impacted by this. And these are just some of the concerns and comments that some of the businesses had. What we know and what I took away from this is our businesses voluntarily closed. They want to keep everyone safe. They want their family and everyone else's family to be safe. But there's serious concerns that they have about the well-being of the community and of their own families, of their staff, and just about being able to keep being an entrepreneur in our community. And these, I read these last night, and I brought me to tears reading them, so I'm reluctant to read the comments out loud because it really fills you with feeling when you realize what you as business owners are going through right now. And so we're sharing this. We shared this with City Council last night. Cindy and I will be presenting this to the chamber, and we will hope also that it will be shared with County Board of Supervisors so they understand the data we collected And if you haven't filled out the survey that will close tonight, the bi-weekly survey, please go and do that as soon as this is over so that we have your data so we can advocate for you. As you see, the information we present doesn't say particular businesses or anything about you specifically. It's aggregated information about our community that's also helping our mayor make phone calls to government officials saying, please listen to us and what our businesses need. So it's really important that this data gets collected. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you, Holly. So with that, I'm going to switch over to the primary part of our presentation today, which is state, local, federal guidance on how to operate more safely. So this is just a headline from today from online newspaper in Eureka, the Laws Coast Outpost. And an employee at Target testing positive. That is bad publicity for that business. It's bad for the community. And so while everyone wants our businesses to open back up, this is the exact kind of scenario that we're trying to avoid here. And so there is a lot of guidance from various entities that are well qualified to provide this sort of guidance on how to operate more safely. So just a note about the sources of this information that I'm sharing from you. It's compiled from the CDC, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, California Department of Public Health, the Occupational Safety and OSHA administration, and then all the following is based on what's currently known about the coronavirus, and it's all subject to change. And so while this information is, I updated it today, it very well could be updated by those various agencies in the coming weeks or even days. So everyone is responsible for keeping up with this information. And then none of the information I'm providing is intended for healthcare businesses or healthcare settings. This is for general non-healthcare businesses, the information that I compiled here. And then finally, you are strongly encouraged to coordinate with local health officials. They're really your best source for what's going on locally and what's most appropriate locally. So I encourage you to communicate with the county. So I have a number of recommendations. One is to provide proactive leadership, to stay up to date regarding state, local orders and guidance, to establish interim company policies regarding operations, to shift your business model to the greatest degree possible, and to work strategically and think long term. So I'm going to go over each one of these 5 in detail. So starting with the first one, providing proactive leadership. Show your employees and your customers that you are prepared, that you're operating responsibly, and that you're not afraid. Do your homework, and then don't stand alone. Strengthen your network at a time when we can't really spend a lot of physical time with people. There's a lot of webinars, phone calls. Find a way to strengthen your network. Call the chamber, the city, the county, the Small Business Development Center, other colleagues, other businesses, people that you haven't called before, and find out how they're operating the most safely. This is everyone's opportunity to be extraordinary. And so some food manufacturing businesses are stepping up and creating hand sanitizer. Some businesses are creating face masks or face coverings. So find a way to be extraordinary in these difficult times.
I really want to emphasize that. I think that one of the best things that I did was I started going to webinars that other North Coast SBDC was doing, or getting on ones that Humboldt County was doing, and just hearing other people going through similar issues that we're going through up here. It really grounds you and then clears your mind a little bit, and you can think more clearly about, okay, you get inspired, you get a little less anxious, and then you can get to action more quickly. So I absolutely think that's a great idea, Rob.
And we've been working on a number of different ideas how to promote shopping locally. And so if you have ideas, please contact the Chamber of Commerce or the city. We really want to emphasize to people to keep our local businesses in business. to the greatest degree possible. And while people are buying things on Amazon, if there's a local option, we really ought to do the best we can to support our local businesses. And there's a lot of resources out there about how to go about alternative marketing in the age of the coronavirus. This particular news article here I found really illuminating. If you are not the type of business that has used Facebook or Instagram in the past, maybe it's time to start. You could, effectively teach yourself that through watching YouTube videos. If you don't have internet, you could call the Chamber of Commerce and get some advice on how to best expand or modify your marketing strategies. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce also has a remarkable amount of really spectacular resources. I'm really impressed with their website and the amount of resources that they provided. It's extraordinarily well organized and really articulately expressed on their website. And so this article here, Coronavirus Best Practices for Small Businesses, has a lot of really good information, as does this one, 8 things your small business needs to do. So those 2 articles I highly recommend, but their whole website's full of excellent resources. So that was Provide Proactive Leadership. Stay up to date regarding state and local orders or guidance. So your best source to stay informed is the Del Norte County website, and looking at, if you go right at the front of their page today, you'll see this COVID-19 updates. And I encourage you to keep your eye on this COVID-19 press releases. Just yesterday, Dr. Raywald released a letter, and it looks like this here. It's got a lot of really good, useful information in it, and it's very well written. Has I think a lot of good information for people. So I encourage you to read that and keep your eye on those press releases. In addition to the county, the Department of Labor has really good information for local businesses, or small businesses, I should say. This is a 20-page guide here that has a lot of useful information in it. The CDC is a rich resource for these, and I'll actually show you a number of different things that the CDC has provided. They all come from this part of the CDC website, Resources for Businesses and Employers, under their COVID-19 subpage on their website. So a lot of really useful business information there, broken down by different types of businesses. Interim guidance for businesses and employers to plan and respond. So this is just a sample of one of those documents. Another one is use of face coverings, and there's a lot of diagrams on there, not only how to use them, but how to create them. And I'll show you some more details of that shortly. Good guidance that you can provide to your staff on the best practices for washing hands, for how to clean and disinfect non-emergency transport vehicles. So if your business uses vehicles, how best to clean them, how to use personal protective equipment, and how to clean various surfaces. The state of California is the best place to look right now for essential business listings. So if you go to the state website, and right on the top, you can find the stay-at-home order, and then click on the essential business lists. And there's a document there that walks you through that. And you can contact the county if you have questions on that. And then the California Department of Public Health also has a number of really good resources. So that's the stay up to date regarding guidance. Next recommendation is to establish interim company policies regarding operations during COVID-19. So here are the policies that I recommend that you adopt. First is just a commitment to safety, flexible workplace, and modified operations. I'll go into each of these in detail. Modified sick leave or modified leave policies. Policies regarding a contingency plan if you end up with an employee that gets a positive test. Policies for recommended and or required personal protective equipment. That's what PPE stands for. So you could either require your staff to use PPE or recommend that they do, but in either case, you should have policy guidance that you're providing to your staff about that. You should also provide some level of PPE, whether that's just a sink with warm water and soap, or the degree to which you can provide PPE is different per business, but at the very least, all businesses can provide soap and water. And then policies regarding sanitation and education. And finally, policies on how employees, customers, and others can access state and federal guidelines. So let's go into each one of these one at a time. When you create these policies, I recommend putting them all into a single document and then sharing that document with your employees and considering making the document available to your customers and business partners. So if you're a restaurant and you're doing curbside pickup, your customers may feel much more comfortable coming to your business if they are aware that you have a policy document and it's available on your website or posted up in your window, so that they can see that you are actively sanitizing your facility according to a schedule and recording your cleaning practices, and that you're providing PPE to your staff. So let's go through these. So commitment to safety. This is just a sample of the beginning of one of these policies that I've written for a business. It's a large manufacturing business, so a lot of employees. And so it more or less says our priority of our business is to keep our employees, customers, and products safe. And then as outlined below, we've adopted multiple sanitation human resources policies. We ask that all employees take this seriously. There are a lot of resources online. This is from the US Chamber of Commerce, of just single page posters that you can hang up inside your facility for your staff or outside your facility for customers. So you could see these sorts of things at grocery stores instead of having to create your own. There's a lot of resources. This one's from the CDC, and the CDC. So all of these you can just find online at that site at the bottom listed there, and you can print those out and provide some communication. Next is flexible workplace and modified operations. So here are some options for that. So you can have flexible shifts, work from home policies, curbside delivery, or an idea that we've been throwing around called phone a shopper. So flexible shift options, it very well could be that some of your employees have childcare problems right now, but they really need and want to work. And so if it's possible, you could explore alternate shifts that you've never had before, for instance, allowing people to work on weekends. That has a number of different advantages in that your staff can spread out. So if you have a type of business like a food manufacturing business, where working from home is just not an option for production staff, but having alternate shifts where you have fewer people per shift could be an option, where some people are working on nights or on weekends. You have fewer people present, and it allows your staff to have alternate childcare options. So that's a good possibility to explore. Work from home options. So for those employees that can work from home, really should be, and there's a number of good resources out there on how to do that. I'll show you a few of them. Curbside pickup, that should say. So even businesses that aren't required to do curbside pickup still could. So a hardware store, for instance, could do curbside pickup. And that could either be by ordering online or with this last idea here, which is phone a shopper. So if your staff is available, say at a hardware store, and people can call in and walk the employee through what they're looking for, and the employee can collect everything. Even, if somebody says, hey, I'm looking for light bulbs, they can go to the light bulb section, say, generally, what are you looking for? And then the customer says, I want this kind of light bulb. The employee could then take a picture, text it to the customer, and have a totally new kind of communication going on between customer and business, so that the employee is effectively being the shopper for the customer. And then when the customer arrives, everything can be just brought out to the car and placed in their seat through the window, and everything can be paid for on the phone with a credit card. So this is a great site here. This is also from the US Chamber of Commerce, 7 Things to Do when Creating an Emergency Work from Home Policy. And so great resources out there on what to look for those. It suggests that you ask your employees for input. If people are going to be working from home, how can you best support them? Checking your equipment and theirs to make sure that it really is going to work so that they're efficient. Offering remote working tools, so Zoom and other free software programs are great resources. And there are a number of free resources online. I'm managing a number of staff right now remotely, and defining expectations is a critical, important part of this. Identifying what I expect of them on a daily basis, checking in regularly, kind of modifying our communication systems. So I've been saying that we need to triple our communications in order to make sure that we're operating efficiently. You have to prioritize security. If everything's happening online and across platforms, then you don't want to lose data or have somebody with malintent take over your information. Do trial runs if you're trying new software. Don't be afraid to experiment. And then finally, remember your non-employees when you're working from home, whether that's FedEx making deliveries, or your suppliers, or other people that don't directly work for the company but interface with you in a physical way. Incorporate them somehow into your work from home policies. This is a great article here, 5 ways to manage small business concerns when employees can't work from home. So there are plenty of instances where working from home is not an option. And so there are still a number of things you can do, which I'll be covering in just a moment. Modified sick leave or leave policies. This is definitely a time for that. So this is from the CDC, and looking at these 3 columns here, they have different recommendations depending on how much COVID is present in the community. So we really fall into that none to minimal column here. So just looking at that, the best recommendation is encourage employees to stay at home and notify workplace administrators when they are sick. And there's additional guidance from the CDC what certain thresholds should be. So, fever, cough, other signs of COVID-19. But you also have to make sure that you're careful and that you're treating your employees with respect. And so you don't want to get yourself into a human resources problem. You need to treat your employees equally, and it may not be legal to ask them about their medical conditions. So you have to be mindful of that and be cautious. So that's why having these policies is a really good idea that you have written and provide to your staff, and says, we ask that people don't come in if you are sick, and if you have the following symptoms, please call in and we'll have a talk on the phone and figure out the best way to get you back to work. Then I recommend that everyone comes up with a contingency plan for an infected employee. And maybe this is not something that you put into a full document. Maybe it is. So your staff may be more comfortable knowing that you have a contingency plan of what you would do if someone tests positive. So it's the same sort of thing. You have to make sure that you're really, well, there's this from Supermarket News. So supermarkets are really on the front lines of figuring out how to operate. It's not the sort of thing that you can do remotely, and curbside pickup is really not practical in most cases. And so supermarkets are creating a lot of innovative policies and processes in this topic. And so this article here, I encourage you to find it, is a good resource. Then recommended and required personal protective equipment. So here's a sample of what I've provided for another company. The following PPE will be available to all staff. Face masks, smocks, gloves, hair nets, beard nets. Staff will use disposable face masks. So these are the sorts of things that you can actually require. So if you have the resources to produce these and prepare them, then you should. And then indicating that staff will wear face masks and gloves when directed to do so. And then providing hand sanitizer, disinfectant related supplies available in all specified locations. Soap and hot water available. And all staff will implement the following sanitation procedures. So those, you can either recommend or require PPE, and recommending could be as simple as a face covering, such as a bandana. Then providing PPE, so recommending or requiring what they wear is taking it to the next level of actually providing it. And so what you can provide is different per business. And then finally, sanitation and education and state and federal guidelines. So sanitation, having a routine schedule in which your facility is clean. So even if you're in an office environment, if the manager shows up 15 minutes before everyone else and cleans all the doorknobs and all the surfaces that are commonly touched, or some sort of routine cleaning schedule where multiple people have responsibility to maintain a log of what's being cleaned, and then keep those records so that you have them. And then educate staff on the best way to wash their hands, on the best way to be sanitary, and just provide resources, make sure that people aren't unclear on what they should be doing. So for instance, if your staff is wearing gloves, in all or some instances, there are proper ways to take gloves on and off. This is just a sample of the best way to take gloves on and off. And then the CDC has great guidance on the best way to use face coverings, including how to sew your own, or even how to make your own without a sewing machine. So merely cutting a t-shirt. So a t-shirt and scissors can produce a face covering, or just using a bandana and some hair ties. And it's important to point out that there is a difference between face coverings, face masks, and then respirators. And so respirators really are for medical staff. And some people out there have gotten a hold of them and are using them for personal uses, and to make sure there's not a shortage either in our area or nationally, those really need to be reserved for medical staff. Face masks and face coverings are different, but the CDC guidance on those are important, including how to safely take them off. So that is all I have for that presentation. I'm happy to discuss anything about that, and I've provided to the city some basic outline of a policy document that businesses can adopt. And so if you are interested in that, you can contact the city, and that basic document can be available for you to modify in your own way. And I think with that, Holly, maybe I'll stop sharing and we can do a bit of panel discussion. Well, actually, sorry, one more quick thing. So some other resources, the County Health Department is your best resource on this topic right now. Small Business Development Center is a great resource if you need help. Chamber of Commerce, the Workforce Center, and the city are all great resources that you should reach out to. And then finally, let's go to question and answer. So I'm going to stop sharing.
So at this point, I'd like to say that we're extremely lucky to have Dr. Raywell on this call with us. He's here and he's been very supportive of local businesses and completely understanding that each of you have specific questions related to your business. So if you will let Dr. Raywell talk, and then if you have a question for him or us, just go ahead and raise your hand and I will say your name and allow you to talk. So Dr. Raywell, is there anything you would like to add? If he's there?
He is there, but he's muted. I don't know if you can unmute him remotely, or maybe he stepped away.
He might be, he might have something he's dealing with behind the scenes. Do any of you have a question real quick? And hopefully he comes back, but if he doesn't, we'll take your questions down and I'll make sure to get them to you. Do you guys know how to raise your hand? Or put in the chat that you have a question and I'll unmute you. I know I'll talk unless someone else has it. I know there have been some questions that certain businesses I've been talking to throughout the last couple of weeks have had, like they're unclear if they're an essential business or not. They're unclear on if they can provide a service in a certain way. And for all of those questions, it's really if you have questions about the governor's order and what's essential business, and you think maybe that you are, but you're uncertain, really call Dr. Raywall. And I put his information in this chat. It's Del Norte Public Health, and his phone number is 707-464-0861. And unfortunately, it looks like
He's back. Oh. So Holly, I had a business that texted me a question that wasn't able to be here and is going to watch the recording later. And they asked that they had heard that furniture stores up in Brookings were open. And was it still safe for furniture deliveries from
go, Cindy.
From Brookings to be delivered to their home here in Crescent City?
What was that?
Are you talking to me?
Yeah.
Oh, so they said that they'd heard that the furniture stores in Brookings was still open, and were they allowed to have that furniture store deliver here in Crescent City? So a company from outside the area come into Del Norte County and deliver product.
I don't know. Dr. Raywell, did you catch that question?
Yeah, sorry, I had to log off. I was running into a problem on my computer with keeping the meeting open, but I'm back. Okay. You know, it kind of depends on the circumstances. If it's a furniture item that is, you know, in a box or packaged or covered and it's been taken out of the warehouse, I think it'd be absolutely fine. In most cases, it's probably been sitting there more than long enough that any kind of contact with anyone who might have had COVID-19 is pretty much gone. And, you know, that kind of secondary transmission is always a concern. But if it's been sitting, you know, in the open environment for more than a few days in a warehouse, it's probably perfectly safe. Mm-hmm. And if there's any doubt, people can just take the packaging off very carefully, wash their hands very carefully afterwards. They are in control of what they need to do to keep themselves safe if they're really truly worried. But I think if it's a delivery from the warehouse, it's usually going to be good.
And then another question that somebody had asked was the symptoms of fever, shortness of breath, and cough. Do they need to have all three of those symptoms before they suspected of having COVID-19?
No, not really. COVID-19 is kind of a strange virus. It presents in different people in a lot of different ways. So sometimes people have gastrointestinal kinds of symptoms, diarrhea, nausea, sometimes vomiting. Another thing that we've learned since it arrived in the United States is change in taste and smell is one of the early symptoms that people are reporting that's pretty significant, because that doesn't seem to show up with a lot of other things. So it's a whole range of symptoms. You don't have to have all of them. It's just a matter of trying to put, you know, the pieces together of what people are experiencing, and could this be COVID-19, and they really should, you know, talk to their provider if they can, because they'll get the best advice probably from their own provider's office.
Can't hear you, Holly.
You're still muted, Holly. I think you're trying to read the question, so I'm going to read it on your behalf. So as we have a question, how can I get the information of this meeting out to my business tenants? I can email them all with something from you if that works. So this is being recorded and is going to be posted on YouTube tomorrow. And so how will people be able to access that, Holly, the YouTube video?
If they go to the City of Crescent City YouTube channel. It'll be there, and I will send out a link to it on the emails I've been sending out, and also on Facebook, just to make sure that everyone has access to it, because there's several business owners that aren't able to come right now.
And along with that, I'll provide to you, Holly, a link to all these articles that I referenced so that you can share those as well.
Yeah, they were wanting that information as well. And the other thing to really touch on for this group, and you guys all know other business owners, and really you talking to them is more effective than us talking to them. But Dr. Rayrol is very willing to chat with business owners and talk with you about your concerns. You know, I luckily had the opportunity of knowing him when I worked at Public Health, and he's a great human being, and when he says he's willing to answer your questions, he truly is. So don't hesitate to reach out to the city, to the chamber, to the county, and to Dr. Rayrol himself when you have questions, because your guys' wellness and survival through this is critically important as well. And so just know that. And then also, if you guys, when you're looking through what you need to keep your business open or stay safe, if you have further questions, you can address them to myself or Cindy, and we'll take them to the task force that's working on this and see if we can get you help if you're having issues with supplies or anything about navigating being open, or the fluctuating situation we may see of opening up a little bit, and if we get cases and we have to close back down a little bit, we don't know what this will look like. But as this develops, please reach out to us, and we'll try and continue to have webinars touching on anything that we're hearing might be useful for businesses, or anything that you guys say that you would like us to support you with.
So if you have ideas or suggestions on what future topics you would like us to cover, you can email me, email Holly, you can call or type it in the chat window right now if you're thinking of something right now. But if you don't have a topic right now, you know, Tommy, tonight while you're sleeping and you're dreaming of something that you want us to cover, just shoot me an email.
The other thing that I really want everyone to know about is we have gone through all of our applications for the Del Norte specific small business stabilization loan, and we've submitted them all, and we still have money left. So that's the up to $5,000, zero interest. You have at least 6 months to start paying it back. And that is only for Del Norte County businesses with 5 or fewer employees. And if you have any questions and you think you don't fit the parameters when you first look at it, you can still call me, and we're really willing to work with the community on that as well. This is about supporting those of you that need the help get through this time. So that's available as well.
And we have a good question from Dr. Shelley.
All right, Dr. Rayrol, is chiropractic and acupuncture practices considered non-essential, or are they essential?
Well, they're part of medical treatment, so you could view them as essential, especially if your provider recommends it. So if you have a prescription from your provider recommending a chiropractic referral or acupuncture referral, that fits the category very well. So I would have no objection to that. I would bear in mind, however, that those kinds of interactions that are face-to-face, that whoever you're working with should be using, they should be configuring their office like a medical office and using the proper masking, at the time, and taking precautions and protecting you as the consumer as well as themselves and their staff. I wanted to say one other thing while I'm unmuted here. But one question I've been getting a lot, and I have really no good answer for, is time. When are things going to be relaxed, or when are certain businesses going to be cut loose to operate again? We just don't have a timetable yet. And the reason is that we're still bound by the governor's directive. people have to understand that at the local level, health departments and health officers, we're acting as an extension of the state effort. And we can't really veer away from that. There's a couple things we can bend the rules a little bit, but we can't break the rules at all. So we are waiting patiently, and we hope that everyone else can wait a little patiently as well for direction and some clear guidance from the state, because that really allows us to get to work and construct what we think is going to work well in Del Mar County. And we've asked for, we've been asking quite a lot for considering us to be a different category of a part of California compared to, say, Los Angeles or San Francisco, because physical space is different, our geography is different, our population density is different. There's a lot of things that are very different for us, and we want them to take that into consideration. And I think they've been listening. We're just all waiting for some action.
That's awesome. So we have about 6 minutes left. I did want to let everyone know that the city has contracted to bring Rob Holman together to the city to help us moving forward in the economic resiliency team. We also have another consultant, Chuck Wolf, who's working with us, supporting businesses who are trying to apply for the small business stabilization loan and different loans. He has actually offered to do an additional webinar next Tuesday at the same time, 3:30 to 4:30. But what he'll be focusing on is helping with strategies around cash flow and planning over the next couple months, starting now as we navigate through maybe this soft opening back up to some businesses, with the potential of possibly if we get a bit more cases in town, how do we pull back, and how do you financially plan through those situations, and what are some supports in place that he can guide you to, just as Rob has done an excellent job compiling information for you that we can then email you. Chuck will do the same next week, and I'll be sending out a reminder on Friday and a Zoom invite on Monday. So please keep an eye out for that, and really let us know if there's anything else you can think of that you need. If we don't hear things from you guys that you need, we're just going to keep listening to what's going around in other communities and what we're hearing from businesses as we talk to them.
And then I just want to add real quick, Holly has already said this, but I'm going to repeat it because it's important. Every 2 weeks, there is a new survey that is on the website, the preparedelnorte.com. And it's very important for our future, for all of our futures, that you go in and that you take the survey. It only takes about 4 minutes. And then also talk to your fellow business friends. You've got a circle of influence, and influence them to please go in. The information is confidential, and it's important that it's done every 2 weeks for various reasons. And thank you, everybody, for being here and spending this last hour with us.
And we absolutely know your emails are being bombarded. Your lives are very different than they've ever been. And so we're just grateful for you taking the time and share with us any concerns you have or anything we can do for you.
Thank you, Julie, Tommy.
All right. With that, I think we'll call this meeting closed. I'll stay online to make sure everyone gets off. Thank you, everybody, and I'll email out the notes to everybody so they can see it as well.
Thanks, Holly.
Great job, Rob. Thank you.
Great job, Rob. Good information.